Hello, Jim Laird from Jim Laird Strength and Conditioning. As promised, I'm going to go over some of the things that have changed for me as far as my perspective on the squat. Not only how I do the squat, but also how I, incorporate the squat with some of my clients that I work with. Now, when I first started, really lifting and competing in powerlifting, I competed in what's geared powerlifting, which you wear squat suits and I adhered to a method where the arch, you would pull your shoulder blades together and you would push out on the front of your belt to create tension. But what that does is it puts you in that anterior tilt. And because the federation I was in didn't really require you to squat super deep, that would work because, you would basically get to about here and then you couldn't get down any further and then you would come back up, right? So because of the federation I was in, you could get away with that. But the issue with that is when you're pushing out on the front of your belt and you're creating that hard arch back there and everything's pulled together, you kind of open this all up and it's incredibly stable and you can lift an incredible amount of weight, especially with a squat suit and a belt. But the problem is you lose the ability to get really down into your hips. And over time, you start having hip issues, knee issues, all sorts of other things, especially if you're a field athlete and you're using this, hard arch strategy. It's going to affect in time your ability to move side to side and to basically move through your thorax. You're arching on the deadlift or on the squat. You're pulling your shoulder blades together on the deadlift. You're pulling your shoulder blades together on the bench, and it's fine if you're a power lifter. That where you're only competing in 3 lifts and you have to be extremely good at those 3 lifts and you want to be extremely stiff and you want to be able to promote, put out the most amount of force possible. But for your normal everyday person or an athlete, a field athlete, especially like a volleyball player or a baseball player that has to, get that upper rotation of the scapula and move through the thorax, it's not necessarily a good thing, right? So there's a few things you can do approach-wise. I'm going to do more about exercise selection, but ideally you can get people on the floor, put their feet on the wall in a 90-90 position and teach them to get their ribs in a good position and to activate their trunk or core, whatever word you want to use, to teach them to basically get in the right position on the floor, on the wall as part of a warm-up. One really simple thing, and obviously this is going to be different for everybody, but I'm just trying to give you some general things that you can try on your own to help you out. But most people come, they're kind of stuck like this. You're going to see the majority of people that are kind of stuck. So, just something simple like this rope squat where you're having people actually flex their spine a little bit, exhale on the way up, push through the floor to get them to actually let go of that spine, tuck that pelvis, get into some flexion. So when they come back to the squat, they're able, because they've gone to the other end of the range, they're able to find something more or less in the middle, right? That's why I'm not a big fan of, if I have, most of the athletes I work with, they might be lifting at school, so I'll teach them how to squat with a straight bar because that's all they have at school. When I work with an athlete, a baseball player, a volleyball player exclusively, and I'm the one doing all their strength training, we won't really lift with a straight bar. I know a lot of people will poo-poo that, but I think, like this transformer bar here from Kabuki Strength is incredible because I can adjust the type of squat that I have based on this here, but it's super comfortable and it's much easier to get that canister when the bar is here, or like a front squat, right? As opposed to your arms being up. So that comes back into the entire, thing I talked about getting people lifting as fast as possible. Another thing we can do is we can raise the heels up, right? If you have someone and they pick up a kettlebell, a lot of times you're going to see they're going to pick it up and they're going to be like this, right? Automatically, just because that's how they're going to get their stability. But if you elevate their heels, it makes it a lot harder for them to arch. So it keeps them, it changes their pelvic position, it gets their abs, their belly button and their ribs in line, and then they sit straight down. That's another big thing that's changed for me, is I used to cue sit back, you know, sit back into the squat, and that's where you get that arch, right? But now it's more of a sit down and more of a leg press kind of motion as opposed to this here, right? So we can use the ramps, you know, we can have them hold a weight out like this so that they get them out of that arch. So we get that canister, okay? And when I squat now, for me, like with the safety bar, I get in, I blow my ribs down, I activate, I pick it up, I settle, I take a breath in, but I don't take a breath in like that, okay? Take a breath in everywhere, I brace all the way around, especially the sides. If I'm wearing a belt, I push into the back of the belt the entire time. That activates everything around. If you push in the back of the belt, it's going to activate your entire trunk. If you push into the front of the belt, you're going to do that. But if you push into the back of the belt and you fill up with air into your low back and the back of the belt, it's going to allow you to sit straight down and come straight up. Okay? It's going to keep that canister. So that's just a few little strategies that you can kind of try on your own. But I would encourage you, you know, if you're not a power lifter, you know, there's no reason why you have to squat with a straight bar, okay? And there's no reason that you have to squat to parallel. And, you know, the box squat is a really good way to teach people how to sit, use that canister, fire up. It's also great, that I've learned from Bill Hartman, a great way to help women that have pelvic floor issues, incontinence type issues where they pee when they lift. It's a really good way to get that, you know, pelvic floor to contract and to help them control that. So it's a really good way to teach them how to use their pelvic floor. It's kind of like plyometrics for the pelvic floor from what I understand. But there's just a few things for you. Use the heel elevation to help fix pelvic position. Use something like rope squat. I also love using bears, you know, bubblegum farts, which is basically where you put a stability ball behind you. I don't know if you can see this, but push back into the wall with a ball behind you, lift up. Anything in between that's going to help you engage that middle and get that belly button and rib cage in the right position is going to help open, get that pelvis in a good position and help, you know, you access as much range of motion as you can out of your hip structure. And also, you know, if you're working with a really tall basketball player or something like that, there's no need to squat someone to parallel unless they're a power lifter, right? If their form goes to hell at a certain depth, just squat them to that depth. Like, they don't need to squat to parallel. It's not, you know, in some sports, squatting to parallel might be detrimental to their performance. You might want to work on a higher range of motion on purpose because that's kind of where they need their power. So there's a lot of gray areas here. There's a lot of, it depends on who you're working with. But I just wanted to give you a couple principles that you can kind of look at for yourself. And if you're a coach, you know, come up with the standards that work best for you and go from there. And as you learn, you can change things. But what I've learned over the years is the sooner we can get people adding some resistance, it doesn't even have to be crazy resistance, the more compliant they're going to be, the more they're going to enjoy the program. So if you can use some things like a safety squat bar, front squat, kettlebell squat, you know, reaching squat with a ball, rope squats as part of a warm-up, you know, walk-ups, bear crawls, these kind of things to get good position, it's just going to lead to a much more efficient program in the long run. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below, and thanks for watching.